of the Marlington Local School District Board of Education on June 7th to order, 4 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hagan?
Here.
Mrs. Humphries?
Here.
Mrs. Krupko?
Here.
Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Swift?
Yes, here.
Okay, new business.
Okay. I am recommending that the board approve an out-of-state field trip for members of the boys' track team who were invited to the National Invitational in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And that will be June 15th through the 18th.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Cost is covered by, cost is covered by,
It would be a school, by
Okay.
any normal school event. It's not a private, like I know sometimes we do the private ones, but
okay.
since they're members of the team. we're
And they're
gonna-
being transported by school
By
van?
school van.
Okay,
Yep. It's the plan right now is school van.
okay.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Krupko?
Yes.
Mr. Swift?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
Okay. We need to set a date for a special meeting to go into executive session to discuss the treasurer and superintendent's evaluation. So we just need to look at our calendars and know the schedules here.
What month are we looking at?
Well, what are the suggestions? I mean, I think June is kind of, we have a board meeting on the 23rd.
Would it make sense to do it at the board meeting?
Do patties.
We could do Patty's at the June 23rd board meeting.
That's okay with
Does
me.
that work? You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just do that June 23rd. And Dr. Mike, we're going to move into July. Our regular meeting would be the 21st. Do we want to do that? I don't know what's going on in July.
That's good with, it's up to you guys. That's good with me.
So we don't conflict with that.
Should be
Are you- yeah.
student presentations or anything, so.
July's a really quick board meeting, so that's a good night
That
to
works.
do.
And that works with your schedule?
Yep.
Okay.
Some boards don't even have a July, so that's a good, we will though.
July, what date?
It was July 21st.
At the board meetings?
Okay, that was easy. Okay, personnel.
Okay, I went ahead and put, since we were meeting tonight, we did get a summer technology person, Austin Digby, and he is our Marlboro tech assistant. So I'd like to recommend the motion that we hire him for summer help on timesheet as needed.
Okay, is there a motion to hire Austin Digby for technology?
So moved?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Mrs. Krupko?
Yes.
Mr. Swift?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
And then I have a short leave request that you all know about, June 10th through July 1st.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept that leave request?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And any discussion?
Are we going to say what type of leave it is? Is it a,
Well, technically, it shouldn't even be on the agenda. I don't know who put it on there, but it's there. So that's confidential. It's my leave, and we can talk, Josh.
okay.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Krupko?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Swift?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
And is there a motion to appoint a superintendent pro tempore?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Do we need to name them?
Okay.
How do we do that?
All right.
please. Yeah,
Okay, so do we do that now in discussion, or?
you can, yeah.
Well-
Yes, you can if you
Sure.
choose. Yeah.
I think the recommendation would be Dan Swisher, since he is here and has been in the central office with you.
Correct, yes.
And has been doing things anyway, so
Yeah.
that's the recommendation, if everyone's okay with that.
Could I say just one thing? I would like to ask you, so Dan is not a year-round employee. I think it's only right that we pay him his daily rate for the day. It's only 14 or 15 days, so the
Absolutely.
days that he's not on duty.
I mean, he's doing the job. so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Do we
Yes.
need to, like, do an addition to his contract or anything?
No,
like that?
just this will
agree
Do we,
suffice.
can we
Let's do
amend
it.
the motion to include that?
We can, yes.
Okay.
To include his daily rate for the days he's here that is not already in his contract.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
Is the motion going
June
to
10th
state
through
the
July
days?
It's the same, July, or June
June
June 10th.
10th through
10th
July
through
1st.
July
1st.
1st.
Yeah, in the previous motion.
So do we need to amend this motion to say we're naming him the pro tempore during
At his
leave of
daily rate.
absence, June 10th to July 1st, at a daily rate,
At his daily
at
rate.
his daily rate?
Yes,
Perfect.
sounds good.
For
So-
any, days outside of his contract, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Okay,
Are you okay amending it? The
Yeah,
motion?
I'm fine with amending it.
So to clarify, Dr. Mike's going to be on paid leave, and now we're going to be paying Dan to be pro tempore at the same time?
okay, so would you call the roll for the amended motion?
Mrs. Krupko?
Yes.
Mr. Swift?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
No.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Passed 4-1.
Okay. So the original motion, do we need to do anything with that, or we leave it?
No, since we amended it, I don't think
Yeah,
we
you
need to do
both agreed
anything
to
with
the
it.
amendment.
Yeah.
Okay. Executive session. I'll need a motion for the Marlington Local School District Board of Education to recess into executive session pursuant to Revised Code 121.22G1 to consider the employment or evaluation of a public employee. All matters discussed in this executive session are designated to the public officials and employees as confidential pursuant to Revised Code 102.03B because of the status of the proceedings and/or circumstances under which the information will be received, and preserving its confidentiality is necessary to the proper conduct of government business. Following executive session, no action is expected. Roll call, please.
Did we do a motion for that?
I'm sorry.
So moved.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yes. I just was zipping right through that. Okay, so move. Second? Anybody?
Who's second?
Nobody, I will.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
It's
That's-
okay.
No, that was a good point.
She was very
Okay.
efficient.
Any discussion? Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. Krupko?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Swift?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
Time in is 4:09.
We have to go across to the classroom because
So we're out of executive session at 4:34. And now we will adjourn the special meeting. Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mark Ryan,
Yes.
Ms. Krupko,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries.
Yes.
Mr. Swift,
Yes.
passed 5-0.
Okay, that meeting adjourned. Okay, so we'll start the work session.
Nope. I didn't pass them on.
Okay.
Who's going first?
Do you want to start, Patty, or do you want me to start, or? You want me to start? Okay, so we had talked a little bit, some ideas, all of us, I think, as a team, that we need to talk about what are some things that we would be able to do if, in fact, we don't pass a levy in the future. And the idea was kind of to, for lack of a better word, maybe have a menu of things that we can say, these are the things that are tangible right now that we've done, and now these are the things that we can look at in the next 2 years, which are crucial for us. These are the things that we would prioritize and say these would be things that are cut. And Patty and I made a commitment to say that we will look at everything. But having said that, we know that we're a people business, and we know that, that our teaching staff is a big cost. So we have to consider that. We have to look at that as well. So we have made some, we have some sheets here for you. So the first sheet that you have there is what we have realized already for next school year, and that's $517,606. So almost, getting close to $518,000. However, on this one of the items that we had talked about for the last couple months was we used to be a 1 SRO district, and we could go down to 1 SRO because one is retiring. And I think the feel in this room is that we are not going to do that right now. So we get subtle reminders, or maybe more than subtle, from other places that this is not the time to do that. So we will take that one off of there. I already talked with the major at the sheriff, and we will work together to get a second SRO. So, and I'm hoping that maybe if anything comes out of what has happened recently, we'll get a bit more grant money. That's a hope. So we will work to get that number, to find that somewhere else. So we have some people that we did not replace. We have one career tech teacher that we reduced in force. And then just some odds and ends points there. We may have people that leave over the summer, and then we'll have to talk. Can we do without that person? How would that look? Do we want to pause there and talk about this one, or do you want me to just kind of go through?
Well, do we
Go ahead.
have a plan for how we're going to cut if we're going to bring back a resource officer, that's $66,000 a year, so we have to have a plan to cut $66,000 somewhere else.
Correct.
Where are we
Yeah,
gonna do
correct.
that?
Well, and we can do that two ways. If you want an answer right now, I can tell you, but if we let maybe till the board meeting, a little bit more time and see, if we have any more attrition or, then we could, that's what I would suggest, that we
Wait till June?
give,
After
well,
the June meeting.
and see if we have a little bit more attrition and then weigh things out.
Okay.
So, but there will be a plan, and we're close to the 500,000, because remember, we did have a veteran language arts teacher retire, and we replaced her with a step 0 or 1, and that's a pretty big savings there. And so that helps, and the same with our gateway to technology. We'll look for a 0 step, 1 step to replace a person that was here, 12 or 15 years. So all of those numbers help.
On these positions replaced, what's this PLTW stand for?
Project Lead the Way.
Yeah, or that's Tyler Quanzica, the pre-engineering program. Project Lead the Way or Gateway to Technology, whatever.
That 0 number for that?
We don't have.
We have not picked a person for that yet.
But it's included with the savings?
It's not. It's a 0 right now. It's not included in the savings. Oh, I forgot also about the MH teacher that we replaced, and that's also a
Well-
lower step.
I mean, I think we have on here somewhere down the road, is this the pre-engineering class at the middle
Yeah,
school?
right.
I mean,
Correct.
down the road, we have that to be, that's on here, we're going to talk about it a little while, so why hire someone for a job that we're going to, in
Consider.
2
Well,
years, we're going to consider getting rid of?
Oh, that's a great question. So
Why hire somebody new? Why don't we
that's-
just get rid of the program now and save the money? this
that's
year?
a really good question. So we
Not
have.
that I want to see pre-engineering go, because I
Yeah.
think it's an extremely important program. My kids went through a similar program, and it made a big difference. But it's not fair to hire somebody for this year when we know next year we're probably going to eliminate that position.
We can do that, but the problem is then we're going to have pre-engineering at the elementary level, engineering at the high school level, and nothing in the middle school level. It would make,
Well, that goes to the point, do we need pre-engineering at elementary at this point?
well,
We're talking about cutting gifted programs. Yeah, I'm looking at this, I'm sorry I'm getting ahead of us.
that's okay.
But the stuff that I'm looking at, requires us to move back and look at this, and
So these are recommendations that we've made out of our admin team, but we can, if you would prefer us to, the reason, there are reasons behind that. Because we feel that the kids, we would probably then lose our engineering program at the high school then. And are we ready to do?
we didn't lose the band program, and we cut that to all.
I'm just going on what our admin team is proposing.
I'm just saying, if it's a cut that we got to make,
Yeah.
why are we waiting, why are we waiting to make cuts?
What does the pre-engineering program look like at the elementary school?
It's called STEAM.
Oh, okay.
And we have a teacher that does that, and she rotates
But that's
between all
not just
three
focused on
buildings.
engineering. That's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
It's what Gateway.
That's a much broader program than just pre-engineering that caters to maybe 20 or 22 students.
So it's very akin to the middle school program. Then as you move up the line, like many other things, it gets more specialized.
So at the middle school, it's not called STEAM?
It's called Gateway to Technology or
okay.
Project Lead the Way, either one.
It's an actual class.
It's a class, yes.
It's not after school.
Yeah, no. And STEAM is not after school either. It's during school. It's a full-fledged teacher now, and it's during school.
Is that available at all grade levels in the middle school?
It's just, I believe the intermediates rotate through that at 4th and 5th, but I'd have to check on that.
No, I mean for the middle school.
Middle school, I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to check. I would guess.
What's the,
All
in-
three grades in middle school.
That's what I thought,
Yeah.
yeah.
what kind of numbers do we have at the high school for pre-engineering?
I would have to look to give you
mean,
exact
would-
numbers. They're full, he's full. Those classes are
Engineering-
full as technology.
If I remember correctly, back to the because engineering is under vocational currently. And if I remember, there were 20-some kids in that class, between 20 and 30. I don't remember the exact number. But it was a full class.
He has electives and about 17 is a full career tech class, and he has more than that in his class.
So this is a question, you're just tossing it up there, it could be kept in place?
So our recommendation coming.
Instead of, you want to hire someone, but you're
Right.
talking to.
But we can, that was our recommendation for next year. But I understand kind of the thought process. The hope is that we pass the levy and then we can keep it. We
I
don't
just
have
don't
to
see.
cut it.
I'll be honest, with the economy and inflation the way that it is, residents in this community have already told us that they're not going to support a tax increase for this school district. So that puts the onus on us to come up with, probably over the next 2 years, $3.5 million worth of cuts.
Yeah,
So
I think we
one
could go for a
teacher-
smaller levy, and it would have a possibility of passing.
Well,
You
it's
still- you
possible.
still
We
have
to
cuts.
make-
We still have
we
cuts to
make
make.
Less-
significant cuts. I mean, the
Okay.
community is asking us to make over $2 million
Yeah.
in cuts.
That's why we're here talking about
Yeah.
what cuts they're recommending based on current circumstances.
Correct. And remember, these are
not
cumulative.
Then we can
Right.
go back and see if we
Possible
need a
levy
4
in
mil levy.
May that,
Remember,
Yeah.
these are cumulative then. They add up, you know.
Understand.
Yes.
We've cut this year. It's also cut next year. So that money is also saved as you
As you
go
go
down,
on.
as you go
Exactly.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we cut 2.5 million this year, we have to cut another million next year. You know, so
Which is-
we're in a bad situation, and there's no way.
We've been saying, we know, we've been all of us have been saying that.
Okay. Can you go on to the next?
You want to?
Yeah, sorry.
No, then
Go on to
look
the
at the
next
next page.
Yes.
Sorry, Dr.
No, it's good. It's good discussion. I just don't want you to think these were not well thought out. And,
No,
and I
definitely.
just want to say, I did suggest making more cuts at this May, and I understood the board did not want me to do that. So here we are, or I would have recommended a lot more cuts right now. So, but maybe I missed that. So then in the next wave or tier that we have there,
And this would be for the 2023.
23, 24 school year, we would then start looking at intermediate grades, fourth and fifth grade. Where could we, could we make those classes bigger? We don't want that at any grade level, but that's a grade level. It's not kindergarten, first, second, where you're learning to read. There, everybody's important, but that's where we would first look. Could we cut one bus driver? Maybe. Could we cut middle school athletics? These are just a smorgasbord of possibilities. Can we grade level our buildings? This model uses all three buildings, grade levels. That would save 4 teachers. Then STEAM, that's the elementary engineering is on there.
But that's grant funded, correct?
Well, so grant funded is kind of a yes, but then you spend the grant funding on another different program. So the grant funding
Why
is
don't we
still
choose
there.
to, what are we going to spend that grant money on by
What we're
taking it
looking
away
at
from
Project
students?
Lead the way.
Either Project Lead the Way or some sort of other tutor that we have or program that we have.
But again, in Tier 3, Project Lead the Way is going to go away.
Well, good.
Could.
So it's cumulative. It's, instead of cutting it all at once, we were asked to make tiers.
I know.
So we made tiers. And we're open to, but this is what we were asked to do, and this is what we did.
I understand.
So, and I think you're asking good questions, and I want you to know This was not willy-nilly. Hours went into this with our
Yeah.
administrative team and discussion. Now, the instructional coach is grant funded, and if we lose that position, that grant funding could not then, in the future, you could not put an instructional coach under federal grant funding. So that one is a little bit, that's Title I funding.
Well, it says no savings right here.
Yeah, that's why we put that there. The latchkey program, we could switch to YMCA. The reason that I understand we haven't done that is the latchkey program is more friendly to our faculty, and that's important. I think latchkey is free for our faculty, and that's important. Could we do away with some recess monitors, cafeteria monitors, hall monitors? Those are things we would really look at.
Pick up the slack there.
Well, some ways teachers would have to, in some ways, are there double duties people could pool? Those would be the teachers. Can we reduce any paraprofessionals? But then when you start to talk about that, you're talking about, our most special children, and is there enough help there? Can we reduce, right now, we have a tech assistant at every elementary. Could we reduce that by one and split the duties? But remember, we already opted for our person to be more of a technology director, and one of our tech assistants is already going to take on some extra duties. And then we would look at, you can, again, revisit the career tech option to move the students to drag. That's a big savings. Then some of the things we felt would be more prioritized into the third.
Do we, sorry.
Here, sure,
Do
go
we
back.
have a dollar amount yet for tier 2? It's hard to hit a target if we don't know we're getting,
The number?
Tier 1, you mean?
No, tier
the
1
tier
we
two
know,
that we
that's
just went over.
500,000.
No,
No, look at the top, the
No,
heading.
that's now, that's
That's the one they're
current.
talking about.
Oh, tier 1, I'm sorry. But still, do we have any numbers associated with how much money this is gonna actually save us? I mean,
I
it
can
looks
give
like a
you-
lot, but.
I can give you approximate, it's about 66,000 per teacher, so, a driver, it would be about, and this depends on if they get insurance, if they don't get insurance, if they're 6 hours, if they're 4 hours. It's very hard to approximate, but I can tell you it's about 20,000.
No, I mean, what does tier 1 add up to?
I can go through and see.
Because if we know we got if we know we got 3.5 million to cut over the next 2 years, we gotta start putting numbers to this stuff, even as we're discussing. The only way we can make decisions ultimately is to know what those numbers are. Because this doesn't look like $2 million worth of cuts right here.
Our career tech programs would be about 700 and,
Okay.
I think we said
That's where the big-
740.
Almost 800,000, yeah.
Almost,
Or more.
okay, that's
yeah.
where the big cut comes in.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was that again, 700?
I think it's about 740,
And I mean,
if
it's
I remember
just,
correctly.
it's something that we have to take a look at. My understanding is that through that process, if we were to decide to move away from career tech and let RG Drag come in, they would keep certain programs here at Marlington. I think Dr. Mike talked
They
about
would.
this.
They're-
They
that
would
would-
most likely keep horticulture, engineering, and computer tech here at Marlington, and then take the rest of it, but they also take those teaching salaries.
Correct.
So
would
those are
be
no longer
RG
our teachers. They
Correct.
are RG
Correct.
Drag, but they stay here.
Correct.
And RG Drag would come in and pretty much hire our teachers.
But isn't career tech funded separately through the state? So if we cut this, we lose all the funding.
We don't get, that's a little bit of a myth. We
Well,
don't
okay,
get
well,
a- we don't get a lot.
explain it to
Patty
me.
can explain that
Um,
a little better than I can.
We get funding for career tech. There's only a small portion that can be spent on staffing. The rest has to be spent on the programming portion, materials, work study.
So what percentage goes to staffing? Ballpark?
I believe the last time we looked at it, it was about 15,000.
I thought it was, you told me quite a bit less than that.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. We pick up a lot of that.
It's less than that.
I could find that.
The actual big grant, Mark, that you're talking about that comes from the state, which may be even more federal, that all goes to Alliance 100%.
Yeah.
Goes to the entity that holds the career tech, that's your career tech lead. And Perkins, I kept searching my mind for the Perkins grant. We get, correct, we get 0 Perkins. Or is that what you're talking about?
We get per
The
child.
8,000.
It's 15,746 is
More
what
than
we
I
get
thought.
for, and this was, of course, not this year, but a previous year when we pulled these numbers. And general fund picks up about $741,677.
Okay, so when I'm jumping to the budget forecast, so if I'm reading 1.045, maybe it's 1.040, is that the line for career tech? It's 779,000, is that
1.074.
1.040?
Part of that is about $195 of it is career tech.
195,000.
195,000, yes,
Is
is
career tech
career
in that
tech.
line?
A lot of that is special ed, economically disadvantaged, and
Okay.
health and wellness.
Yeah, the problem with some of these cuts are, we still have to, we have requirements and we get state funding. We have to serve special ed students, students with IEPs, students that fall under certain umbrellas. So, unfortunately, STEAM classes and engineering classes are probably going to be what we lose because we can no longer afford, we've got to take care of special ed and our rest of our students. And that's just the reality of the community saying no to new money
You are correct.
after 19 years. Right?
Right.
If you're,
Sorry.
no, it's excellent. These are excellent to be able to discuss this. And then if you move to, I guess we called this tier 2 at the end there.
Hang on a second.
Okay.
Did we get a final number for tier 1?
She's still working.
No, if we just take career tech programs and middle school athletics and grade leveling alone would be about 1 million.
What's that again? You got,
Still got a lot more.
1 million?
all right, so
lot more to go.
CT,
Yeah, CT.
grade leveling,
But that's
Grade
really
leveling.
1.5 million because.
What was the other one?
You already got
Yeah.
And the other one was the coaching stipends for middle school athletics. We were at about 1 million there. And then if we do the grade leveling, we wouldn't be able to do the 4-5. So that would come off of there.
So
But if we did grade leveling, wouldn't we be losing teachers anyways because we'd be
Yeah.
putting,
Combining.
Right.
we'd be combining like all the third graders and we only need one, we may need one less third grade teacher, one less fifth grade, one less fourth grade,
Yep.
and down the line. So it would ultimately save us significant money on staffing.
Yes.
We figure that's 4 teachers, at least.
At least.
At least, yeah.
Okay.
So Patty, just to clarify, in the career tech, the 740,000 savings, is that our expenses, or does that include the offset of money that we get per student? Or are we going to lose that, and won't that count against us, or is that included in that total?
If our students choose to go somewhere else, we will lose additional funding, yes. That is how much we pick up with general fund.
Okay.
And again, that is not this year's numbers. When these were pulled, we pulled the last report, which was a 2020. So,
Question.
So if they go to RG, we're going to lose 15,000 per
Yeah.
student?
That's
against
not
the-
per student. That's total.
No, it's just the state share, which is not 14,000.
And then it's not per student.
No.
And then, to your point, Josh,
Earlier, you said that in 20, or a couple years back, when you checked, we were getting funding for 15,746 per child. So
No.
that's what I was referring to.
no, that's
But
the
that-
total. That's the tiny little
That's-
total.
Oh, that's.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then,
Of course you said per-
by the way, if you go to Drake, the
Yeah.
home school retains 10% of the student's FTE. So we would gain that and more back. So that's not even a factor.
Yeah, we wouldn't, I mean, the money savings is, we wouldn't be spending any money from our end, teaching these students any longer. That would all go, that responsibility would go to DRAG.
Correct.
Except for the 10% of their FTEs.
The only thing that I can even think of is we already have some kids that go to Drake, and we already send a bus to Louisville, and they go from Louisville to Drake. We might have to add a bus and share in that cost, which that's not going to be anywhere near what the savings we're talking about.
And we're currently exempt from the joint vocational
Correct.
district
Correct. We belong
funding.
to Alliance.
Yeah,
So,
Correct.
so that changes.
I think we have
Correct.
to.
So then we incur,
Drag incurs that money,
yeah, but don't we get taxed?
10%. We get 10% of that money.
No, I'm talking about taxpayers. Don't the taxpayers, aren't they on the hook for JVS?
Yes, correct, they are.
Yeah,
Two drag mills, and I need to find out what that amounts to.
And
Non-voted.
I think
Unvoted,
because of our compact with Alliance, we probably need Patty and Mike to pull the contract because there are some contractual obligations, and it's like I think a 2-year process for us.
It is.
So to save that money, we wouldn't actually, that's why we're gonna need additional cuts. That was one of, I hadn't gotten there yet. But it looks like that money won't be realized till the 2024-25 school year
Right.
in savings, but we have to take action now.
Right.
Get it in process.
In order to get it in process, so we save that money in 2 years. So that's even further down the road, from my understanding.
Yeah, there's a lot more discussion needed on that.
Yeah, I agree.
We're gonna have to probably have meetings with Alliance
Yeah.
and the county, the folks over at RD Drag.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a long process, but we would have to start that process now,
And we need to make sure
now.
the residents know the impact of us cutting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
Taxes
it's
are going up.
just,
Yep.
then maybe a 5 mil or 4.5 mil levy makes sense, down the line.
That's true.
But if inflation keeps going the way it's going, I don't know. We're hanging on to the COG diesel contract. That's going to go away, and then our diesel fuel's going to go up.
When's that expire?
2024.
2024. So we have a little time then. I thought it was sooner than that.
So why are we not looking at cutting busing sooner and going to the state?
We looked at that. It'd be very difficult. The problem you get into if you cut busing is then your kids don't come to school, and then we're going to get financial penalties for our kids not coming to school by
Well,
the state.
And I think when they looked at it, reducing the bus, we could only go by the state standard, which means in cutting busing, we'd go to a 2-mile radius. Kids would have to walk to school, and that's really impractical in Marlington.
Or their parents would have to transport them.
Yeah, their parents would have to transport them within that 2-mile radius. And then on top of that, we still have to bus K through 8. We're mandatorily required to bus K through 8. So at that point in time, you're really not talking about a lot of students. You're literally driving past them.
Correct.
On the bus route.
Correct. Or if you cut high school, you're going there anyway to pick up the elementary and middle school kids, and then the high school kid is.
What's our budget for busing right now? 1.2, 1.3 million a year?
I don't think it's that much even.
Get you those numbers. For transportation,
Yeah.
I can get those numbers.
I know it was close to $1 million a few years ago. I'm sure it's
It does,
well
yeah.
above that.
When we discuss this, yeah. I mean, we can get those numbers and talk about it, but it does not sound practical because,
Well, that's
for those
fine.
reasons.
I'd like to know the
But we
number
can
anyway, yeah.
absolutely look at that too.
But you're looking at fuel and,
Hmm?
and staffing and fuel and,
Yeah, everything.
And I think since some of you have been on the board, I know years fly by, but some years ago, 3, 4, the state made some new attendance laws, and they're very unfavorable to school districts. We get penalized if kids don't come to school. So that it's not really. And then at Marlington, like Mr. Swift was saying, it's the parents would have to bring them. And then you're taking a bus right past that house to go pick up the other kids. So I think we're the largest land mass district in Stark County. We're not the largest in the state, but we're large. We span a lot of land.
But
Yeah,
I'd
so
still
the-
be curious to see how many parents are already transporting their kids.
We
So
can-
if you
we
go
have that.
past
We can
those
get you that.
lines,
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah,
how
I
many are
know.
there.
It's a lot.
So,
Some of that's follow over from COVID too.
Yeah, maybe.
well, it's
'Cause they
been
were-
for years, for years, even when my kids were there. The lines
I'm-
were wrapped around the buildings.
Yeah, it's true. Go to Marlboro. They're out in the street picking up kids.
Yeah, but at the, yeah, okay. But we're required. The state requires us to run those buses regardless of whether the 50% of the parents are out there.
I understand.
And when we looked at the savings, basically 2-mile radius and high school only, getting rid of high school only, when we talked about that, we're talking, again, $2 to $3 million in cuts, a couple, tens of thousands on skipping 2 or 3 students isn't the kind of cut that's going to get us there. At
Well-
least, maybe, that's my thinking.
I think that another aspect of cutting busing that you really have to take into consideration is that's going to make people look at other options. Since they're already driving their kid to school, they might look at other options available, especially with the expanded voucher programs. So
Yeah,
you
that's
don't
true.
really don't want to push people.
True, that's a good point.
Oddly enough, I just thought of this. I think whatever you do with busing, the state still requires us to transport charter school kids if they're in a certain radius. So we'll probably still have to transport them,
I would imagine.
whether we cut busing or not. So kind of,
Again,
kind of a weird,
we're
and
talking in the
special
scope
ed, you're
of
right.
Millions and
Yeah.
millions of dollars. It just wasn't one of the areas that had a huge price tag.
But I'm looking at tier 2, where you're saying busing reduction mandated only. If it's good
It's
enough
just-
for tier 2, why are we waiting?
It's just on the
Why
smart,
wouldn't you
it's
be
on the
tier 1?
menu. It's
If
just
you're
on,
Thinking about doing it anyway.
Well,
it's on the menu.
good question, Kathy.
So the bottom line is on tier 1, there's only 3 items that amounted to $1 million, and the rest of the items you proposed here, addition, yeah,
It's about 1.2 with all of them except, as I had to take grade 4 and 5 off because that would be included in the grade leveling. STEAM, instructional coach, those would have to be ODE approved. YMCA is off. And I didn't add in the monitors because we have to check schedules to see if that's even doable.
So it's safe to say 1.2?
1.2 without those.
Okay, great. So 500,000 plus 1.2,
1.7.
Which is really
1.7.
1.7.
we still got another $1.5 million to go, folks.
It's very high level.
And,
Which is where a
it's,
smaller levy
Sorry,
could help
Pat,
to get.
one more time. 1.2 without what?
I did not include the STEAM, the instructional coaches, because those are both grant funded. We'd have to talk to ODE if we could do something. YMCA, I wanted to check to make sure that's not self-sustaining at this point. And I did not add in any of the 3 monitors because contractually we would have to check that with the schedules, make sure that was even doable.
Okay.
Sure.
And how long are we paying on these loans? When are those finished? Because that's $800,000 almost a year. That's half of our deficit spending almost.
We, I just got a new list from them. It's about 710 now, thousand, because we paid that extra on it
Okay.
last year. So about 710,000 out of those pipeline funds. And it's a 1 point, what did I tell you, 1.68
That
percentage?
sounds pretty close, yeah.
Okay.
For how many years?
For
It
that
was,
one.
we took it for 7.
Okay.
So we're
we
in the
still have
third
5
year,
years left.
second year?
Second year.
Minimum payments, yeah.
Minimum payments, yeah.
Minimal payments, yes.
Still a big chunk of money.
Is there, does it make sense to look at asking consumers to extend that maybe another 5 years to maybe help us get ahead in these next couple of years? Then we can,
Well, here's the only thing I'd say to that. Looking at tier 2, we haven't gotten there yet.
Consumers is, I don't want to speak for them, but they're not going to extend that loan to us.
I
We
think-
don't have the financial wherewithal for them to extend the loan to
Our
us.
credit rating's junk now.
I don't think the interest rate we could get
quite
anyway.
And you're right, we would not get that
We don't
interest
want
rate.
to, we wouldn't
well,
want to touch that.
I'm looking at these next 2 years as critical. So something we can do in the short term, and it gets us ahead
Yeah.
of the game, ahead of the curve, and then we can, in 3 years, you readdress it. Okay,
Good,
we got a
good point.
healthy balance sheet now, we got a healthy cash reserve, then speed up the payments at that point. That's all I'm looking for. This year, next year are critical.
Well, hey, hopefully we'll get some Nexus money this year on top
Settlement.
of everything. and
You're
we
gonna
can
hang your
just-
hat on that, huh?
I'm not,
Hopefully.
I said hopefully. I said, until it's in my grubby little hand, I ain't betting on it, but
Oh, No,
if I win
I know what
scratch
you
off
mean.
lottery,
yeah.
you're getting
Yeah.
a better Christmas present this year, Mark, so.
Have we gotten any clarification on the reason why they had an overpayment in the beginning of the year? What was the
Because they're
rationale
gonna
behind
underpay
that?
us at the second payment.
What's the rationale for that?
Cash flow for them, I guess. I don't know.
I've not heard a word. We can only
And
speculate.
that was not just us, that was other districts as
Correct,
well.
that was
District.
all the districts.
Yes. Rover overpaid
Early-
too, or
earlier.
early collection on Rover too, according to the county auditor.
Someone knows the answer.
Someone should. Tier 2.
Some of the things on 2, I had explained, but I'll re-explain. Right now, we have a middle school model where we block language arts, mathematics. If we move to a junior high model, the kids wouldn't be on teams, they wouldn't be blocked. It would just be more like a high school schedule. And that's going to save us 4, 6 teachers at least. We did put, look again at busing reduction. Some districts go to no, but we're not going to do any building repairs at all. Close a building in grade level, use 2 of our elementaries. Close 2 buildings and move everybody between the 3 buildings that we have. If you move career tech out, we definitely could fit 8th grade in here. And Mrs. Humphreys was sharing your classes were pretty big when you went to Marlington. So more kids have been in this building. It's not the ideal because we take up more space now with our stuff and our computers, but it's possible.
Would we then look at reorganizing, so like 7, 8 here, 7 through 12 here at this building, and then 4, 5, and 6 at the middle school,
Something like that.
and then
Pre-K3 at one of
K3
one
at
of the
like
others.
Lexington?
Yeah, one of the others, yeah.
Okay.
Have you looked at K through 6 at the grade school levels? And then what Jonathan said for middle school to high school?
And then just leave the middle school sit empty?
What-
Well, this is our best building, so we'd have to configure somehow that this would have kids. This is definitely our best building.
The middle school.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm thinking we're in
He's
the middle
always in
school.
the middle school.
I'm in the middle school.
You're
The
always
middle
in the middle
school is our best
Right.
building.
Right.
That's the
It's our
problem.
newest building in the district.
But this building is really equipped to be a high school. I mean, then to equip that back to be, or I don't know if that was ever the high school. No, I
No.
don't think. To equip that to be the high school, I don't think that would be practical. The other problem is Lexington's our biggest building, but it's our most needy building right now because it needs the wastewater treatment plant, and it should be abated.
We can do it
So-
at Washington, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, all of that, we'd have to do a study on that and figure out. We know we cannot fit pre-K 5 in one building, even Lexington. We cannot. We know that.
So could we do pre-K through 3,
Probably.
Yeah.
and then 4,
Probably.
5, and 6 at
Right.
the middle school?
Yeah. And then the high school would be a junior, senior high school.
Yeah.
They looked at that before they closed Marlboro, and the community was not.
Well,
Community has
Community's
if
not
they don't,
supporting us.
they don't
give us the money,
give us the
so
money to
we've
run
gotta
all
do
the
what we've
buildings.
gotta do.
And they didn't want to pay for it either.
Yeah.
So, here we are.
I've heard for 2 years, the community has spoken, the community has spoken. Well, they've spoken again, and we have to do what we have to do now that we've heard the voice again. It's the consequences of the actions.
We do have pre-engineering on there. I mean, if push comes to shove and we keep, could we have one principal over 2 buildings? But remember, I told you that doesn't save a lot, and then talk about a safety issue.
Well, if we
I
went to
mean-
one elementary school building, we
Well,
only
yeah,
need one
we would,
elementary
right,
principal.
we would, remember, this is a menu, though, to
Right.
to figure out, these are just possibilities. We had single block math, that should already be on there with the junior high model. Again, paraprofessionals, the elementaries have something we call the EMIS secretary, so they have a full-time and sort of part-time secretary. We'd eliminate those part-time, which, again, would be hard, but all these things are hard. The elementaries wouldn't have an afternoon custodian. The elementaries, we would have to absorb our library positions, and then we'd have to figure out how we're going to get our teachers their planning if the kids don't get a library. And then we have reduction of busing again in there. And then, there's always looking at attrition. Those are pretty much the things.
So what does this one add up to, roughly?
Well, this has a lot of possibilities.
As you get further out, you get different possibilities.
I mean, variables. Ballpark.
Well, remember, though, we're not going to save money on career tech until this year, until the
Right, until that
2024-25. So some of these Tier 2 cuts, we're going to have to move into Tier 1. Because that $780,000 isn't realized.
For 2 years.
So Tier 1 cuts are going to have to come sooner. I mean, and if we're going to talk about leveling and a junior, does it make sense to level this year, save the money, and then be forced to go to a junior high model in 2 years and change everything all again? I think it would probably make more sense that we do all that at one time
And give the time.
and
Have the
give
time for
and
planning.
have the time for the plan to work through and have
Yeah.
career tech out.
So you're saying go to grade leveling by next school
By
year?
next, that would make
And
sense.
include the junior high model
Not this
in
coming
that?
one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
2023,
A year from
24,
now.
I think we'd have to.
I think you're right.
To say, I mean,
That gives you a year to plan.
where else,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, where else are we gonna save that kind of money? I mean, that's saving, $200,000 in principals, $200,000 in janitors, $200,000, I mean,
but I
that's
think
gonna
even
add
more
up.
important, going to grade leveling preserves the academics.
Certainly.
Helps.
You can do that, save money in a lot of areas, but we're not hurting the kids academically.
Yeah.
Which is the
That's our
goal.
biggest
You're correct.
That's our goal.
You are
Absolutely.
correct.
Right. Absolutely.
So a little bit about time, I think. So today, we're at June, and we're talking about these menu items. My suggestion to you, and I think Patty would agree with this, I think November's pivotal. We have a renewal on the ballot, and I'm really hoping by November we know this pipeline, what's going on with this pipeline. Then we can make a more clear-cut decision and say, here's our decision, and if you choose to put the levy back on in May, If it doesn't pass, here's what happens, even if it passes, this is
Yeah,
what
but you have to start working
I don't
towards that
think,
end
I
long
don't think we
before
have
that.
till November. I think, yeah.
We would be.
Sorry.
We would be working toward, we would be. But what I'm saying is, I think you're comfortable if we make that decision in November, right after the election.
far
But
as
if
the
you want
tier
it,
one cuts,
yeah,
I mean,
but if you want it sooner, then we,
'Cause
No, I think-
We have to act on I'm just saying, if, it's something to consider, but if we have to act on drag, then that's gonna have to be sooner rather than later.
well, I can also ask, can we, once you start down that pathway, can you say stop, we've changed we were.
Yeah,
okay
option
with
to,
I don't-
change our mind."
option to.
I
back
don't
out.
know the answer to that.
Once it's done, I don't think there's a coming back, I don't,
No, I think what he's saying, if we start the process
Yeah.
and we get a year into it and decide,
then
okay,
change our mind.
we can back out of this, ending it.
But why would you? Because isn't one of the complaints that we took a bunch of cuts several years ago, 8 years ago, and brought a bunch of those programs back? And so really, what was the point? And maybe it put us a little bit further behind because we brought things back. That's been quoted by opposition all along. So we're in a spot where if you're going to make a cut, it's a cut.
yeah.
And we need to think about the cuts that we're making and see if they're going to be permanent.
And in general, it looks like the cuts that are going to be required are actually reshaping what this district looks like.
You're correct. You are correct.
From grade leveling to buildings to, if we can't get the support of the community, then we can't afford the model that we currently have.
The model we have enjoyed a support for a lot of time that we don't enjoy any longer. So
It takes money to do it.
the change has to
Correct. You are
reflect
correct.
what is the level of support we have.
Until when does the board have to decide to put the levy on in May? What's the date we have to
back
decide
up
the amount?
90, is it
First week of
February?
February.
First, you have to do 90 days ahead, you have to do the final, so the board meeting before that, the first, so it was about,
December and January.
it's
Yeah, that's what we just-
December and
I
January.
thought on the previous May levy, it had to be voted on in November or December.
December and January.
Patty's saying it was December, January.
No.
No, the
No,
board put it
no,
on
no.
in December.
December, the other
previous
board did the
voted to
pre.
put the levy on.
Correct.
We had the second reading.
You are correct, yeah, December,
First-
January.
First reading would have to be by December.
First reading would be December.
December meeting.
And
What's the time between both readings?
A month, has to be a month, doesn't it? It has to, or does it have to be?
We have to submit and get the numbers from the county auditor.
That's right.
They suggest
That's
30 days.
Okay.
it could be
Last
soon.
time took a couple weeks.
Okay.
So we will have our renewal proposed on this month.
And my understanding is, based on our 5-year forecast, we're anticipating a letter from the state, a letter of warning, correct? And one of the things they're going to require is some sort of a plan of what we're going to do to start pulling things into order. So I don't see where we can wait till November. If we're getting a letter in November, it'd kind of be nice to have a plan set to go.
Yes, we'll have to turn that plan in last time by end of February. I believe.
Correct. The letters come around January, first of the year, and
And
then,
it's only fair not to keep our teaching staff in limbo and give them as much notice as possible. That next year, I know that normally we riff in, like April or something like that, but I think if we have a plan in place, because I'll be honest, from a political standpoint, looking at ebbs and flows of elections all across the country and where we're at today, a lot of school districts had a hard time passing new money. Several school districts in Ohio had a hard time passing renewal money. And with $5 a gallon at gasoline, which is $5.09 now at Giant Eagle, I don't see in the next 12 to 24 months, I don't see people being in an economic position to raise their own taxes anymore. So now, unfortunately, and I don't, whether it's a 4 mil levy or a 7 mil levy, I just don't see people wanting to do that. And so I think we have to move forward as these cuts are happening. And this isn't, we warned people, 2, 3, 6 months ago. that this was coming, and we're here.
What's the cutoff if the board wanted to put a levy on in November? Are we here?
June, didn't we say? Didn't we
For the
figure
first
that
or second
for the
reading would
first
have to be
reading?
done already?
Yeah, if we're putting a levy on, I gotta.
Well,
we need to
the
know
auditor would
soon.
need to know
Soon,
by
yeah.
August,
Okay.
so then we have to back
So
up 30 days
August,
from
yeah,
there.
Yeah, for July.
So
at
like the
latest.
first week of August.
Are you
So-
talking new
So
money
back
on
up
top of
30
the
days
renewal?
from there.
Yes, a levy on top of the renewal. And
Are you going to
my-
run the levy committee?
Well, let me get at what I'm getting to. My suggestion would be to ask for a smaller amount and then come up with a version of this. What would this look like if we were to pass a 3 mil levy, for example? You know, how much, you know, if we split the difference with the community, see if that was something they'd be willing to, you know, support instead of just assuming.
So, and I understand saying a couple things with that. I don't know in the history of our state that any or many have passed when they put a renewal and a new, no matter what the amount.
They don't.
And then just to share a little story, so I finally broke down and bought this new iPhone 13, and it was out of date when I walked out of the store, right? So the same with the smaller levy, inflation's always going to keep, we're going to be right back to where you are now if you put a tiny levy on the ballot. It seems like the thing to do, but we're going to be right back here with the same
We
problems.
pay a consultant. We brought in a
Yeah.
consultant, financial consultant.
We did, yeah.
And his recommendation was the levy we put on.
Correct. You are
And even at
correct.
that, he said it wasn't going to be
You are
enough.
correct.
So going
Yes.
even lower,
You are correct.
Makes no sense.
Well, and by the margin it lost, you'd have to be confident that you're going to swing. It was a 2-to-1 defeat.
Correct.
So you're going
It's
to
hard.
make up that difference on a smaller
Not-
levy. I
not
just
until
don't
the-
see it.
Not until the economy.
Especially with this, yeah, especially with the
Ask
economy.
Jimmy Carter.
and we're
how
still
it
going to
works
have the
out.
group that goes against it, no matter what.
Plus the apathy. The apathy.
Yeah.
There was a lot of apathy.
I think for
People
once,
didn't
we'd
show up.
actually have a united front on something, which would be good for the community and the school district, but let's make it political.
We didn't have a lot of people supporting it.
No.
We were
didn't
we
have-
were asking for people to come out and walk. We had staff helping out, and that was about it.
Again, I've heard for years, the community has spoken. The community didn't want Marlboro closed. The community spoke. Well, the community spoke again. They do not want to support what we need to keep this model of a school running. We have to change the model, period. We sunk millions of dollars into these old buildings, and it's costing us $700,000 to $800,000 a year to pay for those repairs. And and it's money we can't afford, never could.
It was money that we got a windfall that's being paid with.
Then where's the
Where's the
people,
money?
where are the people who
The Nexus money.
had to have that school?
Where is it?
Where are those people supporting us so that we can continue to support this system?
Karen asked, where's the Nexus money? Patty, how much did we receive this year? How much are we receiving for our first payment this year?
We had some early collection, and we'll be transferring 1.1 into our
There's the
070.
money.
That's
However,
money
we're only
we could
going to
be
get,
using to educate these kids.
Yeah, and it doesn't pay the bill. It's not, it wasn't paid. It was supposed to be paid up front. Nexus money is going to be there to pay this. Now we have a loan that we're paying back. It's
The
not
same-
there. We don't
Same
have
thing
it.
if you borrow the money and pay it back or pay it up front.
That's not what was sold.
If
to
you're
the
getting
community.
the payments from Nexus in installments and paying for the,
And paying interest. Even if it's
What's
low
the interest
we're paying interest. That's more money we're spending.
so you never paid interest on a lease purchase when you were on the board previously, on any projects, at much higher rate? Anybody?
It's.
Not that,
In the
not in that
financial
amount.
situation we're in right now, it's money we could be using.
Right.
It's money we could be using for the
You make it sound
education
like
of
that
the
would make
kids.
all the difference in the
It
world.
would make a
It would
difference.
make
You
a
got
big
75% of your expense going to staff.
$800,000.
Well, if you're
$800,000 a
complaining
year.
about interest, then you wouldn't be making the minimum payment on a lease purchase.
We're in a financial crisis right now. We can't afford to make any more.
So you want to extend it and pay a higher
Extend it
interest.
to get through, I explained that. We got 2 years of critical cost cutting that we have to do. We have no choice.
we don't want to consider asking for a smaller amount for levy to try to offset some
Who's
of the
going to run
costs.
it? I mean, I was involved in it to some extent. We didn't have a lot of help. We got some donations. I think we spent about $7,000,
And most of that was
and we
from
got,
prior
what,
elections.
29% of the vote.
I think if we could make.
And
it-
we had a concerted effort to defeat it on top of that.
Right.
So that tells me, do what we have to do, just don't raise our taxes. Okay.
Right.
I got the message.
Message received.
Multiple
fair
times
point.
over the last 19 years. We've got to focus on the renewals and the permanent improvement. We lose either one of those, and we might as well just lock the doors. We lose either one of those.
Yeah, if the renewal goes down, I mean, the state's taking us over
We'll
within
come
2
in.
years.
Yeah, maybe sooner, yeah,
Yeah, maybe sooner.
yeah. You're correct.
Patty,
I'm sure that makes some people
Sorry.
happy for some reason.
what was
I
your
understand why.
ballpark on tier 2?
The very last one.
Yep.
Closing 2 buildings, way back when we did an analysis, high figures about 630,000. Closing 1 is about 261. So that's our variance. Grade leveling, we're still going to save 210. Of course, that's not in addition to closing. That would be rather than. So
Yeah, but if we're going to grade level and then eventually have to close a building anyways, we might as well do it all. I don't want to, listen, I don't want to do this.
Right.
I mean, I want to make that absolutely clear. This is not something I want to do. But we're just, you know, it's either we make these decisions or the state board comes in, fires us, we get to proceed over the student of the month recognition, and all the decisions are taken out of our hands, and that's going to happen within 2 years. So,
And, yeah, no board control.
no board control. So, that's where we're at. I mean, it's just
Well-
reality.
I just can't help but recall that all 4 of you, like 8 months ago, said that you would not consider closing a school building.
I did not
if there
say
was
that.
financial issues.
Did not say that.
Nope.
did not say
I
that.
specifically said we would have to sit
Look at
down and
everything.
consider everything. Everything's
That
on
was,
the table.
and to be honest, I mean, I don't want to close building. But a 66% defeat in a levy, I mean, that says a lot. I mean, it's a lot of people saying no, Josh.
I don't know.
I've been doing this a long time.
Yep.
And when people say no at that level, they're not going to say yes at another level. They're
Mr. Ryan, I don't
Yep.
think I ever answered
Yeah.
your question, so.
You get sidetracked.
Let me go back to my figures here.
Yeah.
One building would be about, closing 1 would be about 646 with the additional things we listed, not counting things that overlap. And closing 2 would be more like $1 million.
And then no additional repairs and costs that we would.
Yeah,
be
repairs,
In future
correct.
repair costs.
So,
and again, that's a saving. Those are cumulative savings every year.
Every year.
Because again, if we go out to 2024, we got a $3.37 million deficit. In year 25, we have a $5 million deficit. So unless we do something to address, continuing expenditures, one-time cuts aren't going to get it done. It's just, the math doesn't add up.
yeah. So those 2 numbers are the bulk of your savings for tier 2? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. One or the other, yes.
About 900,000? Is that what I'm
For
adding?
2 buildings, yeah. And 1 building would be more like the 640. And those are very high-level figures. Plus, we wouldn't know which staff, so.
So what direction are we giving right now?
And I'm sorry, but there's one more 1,000-pound gorilla, this roof.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we had said we would decide because remember, every time, now as we patch, it gets more and more expensive to patch. So we have to,
When?
by November, for the latest. I talked to Al, I think he did talk to, well, we're not guaranteed, but the company we'd like to bid on the project, which is the one we've been using, they need to know by the, to get us on the docket and order all the stuff.
What can
So November's pivotal. November's really pivotal.
What can we afford right now?
Oh.
I think we have, what, a million in
Well,
capital improvement total?
I figure after this transfer, this is my suggestion, that we transfer the amount, the 1.1 into 070, hold off on any extra payments right now, because if we would go back to do a lease on a roof, that makes no sense with the additional interest we would pay. I say we take that money and make the 1/3 repairs. I think we considered that we could
There's- yeah,
patch,
yeah.
not patch, but repair 1/3 of the roof. We should have enough to sign a contract.
Are we going to get an estimate on what the cost is going to be for doing?
We will.
1/3?
We'll get you a new estimate.
Well, maybe we should, is that something we can do over the summer? Or
Yes,
before school
yes.
starts? So
Yep. Yes, that we can do.
can we get a cost for, like you said, the third and doing the whole thing?
Yes, we can.
Well, I mean, given the current financial situation, I just can't wrap my head around how all of a sudden this roof became so imminent since we've been dealing with it for over a decade. If we have financial issues, I mean, is it, structurally sound? I mean, not that I don't want it fixed, I want it fixed, but how has this become a
Well-
priority?
Well, that money comes out
With
of
all
a
the
different
other
pot.
things.
You
Consider-
made a list. You
Yeah, yep,
prioritized some of the repairs.
right.
And this, I believe, was the number
This is
one.
the number one repair.
As every year that ticks by, it gets worse. It's been let go a long
Yeah.
time. The roofer said this has been let go a long time.
And this is going to be a
So-
building that stays.
I would think so.
This building's not going
Yeah,
anywhere.
I would think so. We do have to have high school. I did check on that. Well, you can pay tuition and send your kids to Alliance. I mean, other districts did it years ago.
We've been
Did it
thinking a
years
lot
ago.
out-of-box things.
Yeah, we've
trying to
been,
figure out
but I
something.
got the word on
The
that.
state requires us to have a high
It
school.
requires us, if you have to be K to 12. You have to be K to 12. Yeah. Which is not the case 20 years ago.
Really?
When our neighbor, East Canton, talked about, we'll close our high school and divvy out the kids, Louisville, Canton local.
Interesting.
So we can't do that.
No, we are not allowed.
So are we giving them direction on what we want them
Well, I
to
think we need-
seriously focus on right now?
I think the first thing we need to do is have numbers attached to all these,
Okay.
other than just Patty, writing them down on her page. I think we need to have numbers attached to all these so we can add it up. And we can use it as a menu, because maybe something from tier 2 actually gets moved to tier 1, something from tier 1 gets moved to tier 2, and that kind of thing. But I think we should at least have numbers first. And maybe, some input. Are we at a point where we need to have the county take a look at this with us and, get an extra set of eyes on it?
But are we looking at, no matter what, going to a grade leveling? And that's a good place for them to at least start, to have everything set up and talk about it from a grade leveling standpoint. We've got to have some starting point. Or we're just going to keep getting lists like this.
Well, we're looking
that-
at vocational. We're definitely looking at the
Okay.
process for vocational.
So can we at least say, focus on grade leveling and vocational education at this point? To give them something concrete to work with.
Would you like some samples of, if we could grade level this way, A, B, and C? We can grade level this way, we can grade level this
Yes.
way.
Sure.
We can grade
Yes,
level this way.
please.
And then I will call the head person and here is the process.
Yeah, 'cause
If
that's
you
how
would
we
like to
attach a
join
number.
grade.
That's how we attach a
Yeah.
number to it.
So we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you agree? I mean, we can do that, Patty.
Okay,
Yeah.
is that,
Two things.
is that something we can have by next board meeting?
Not June.
I know,
By July.
July.
by July, okay.
Yeah. And I might suggest I think this was incredibly productive. I would suggest another work session in July. I mean, and if you don't want to do July, I know it's summer and all that, but early August, I mean, we've got big decisions to make. And
I
you
think
need to think about it.
It's
You
productive to
need
do it.
time, yeah.
Do it when school's out,
I,
because when school starts, then it gets
Yeah.
crazy.
so,
busy, everybody.
and you don't have to say tonight, but I know you need time to digest all this, but, whatever you want us to.
I think as far as the numbers go that you're filling in as we're talking, can we get that at least, what you're filling in as we're asking? I'm not asking for a full-fledged report on grade leveling, but just these line items that you were telling us as we're asking. Can you fill those in and send us an update, Patty, before the next
The
board
grade
meeting?
leveling, I have a report that I gave to a committee.
Because I'm trying to write numbers as you're talking.
We have
All
that
right,
from
I'll
back
send that.
then.
Just something to look at, so we can come to the next work session or board meeting and say, yeah, we talked about that, these are the numbers attached.
You make some notes.
Is that okay, Patty?
Yep.
Well, and I think what would look like if we do grade leveling and building realignment at the same time, do we have enough room in the high, like, there were a lot of, I felt like there were a lot of unanswered questions about that option. We need to know definitely, do we have room in the high school? Would one elementary work? We need definitive numbers on those, because I feel like we said, yes, we can do that, but nobody was really sure. So I think we need more in-depth study. Do we have room at,
the actual numbers.
the actual numbers?
Number of rooms.
Number of rooms, number of
Okay.
students, and yeah.
Okay. we
Probably
have all
good for
that.
us to understand that anyways, as we're, counting resources. Every student has a dollar sign, every teacher has a dollar sign, every room has a dollar sign. And, it's the only way we can work to look at how much we're saving for each one.
And which elementary school's in the crosshairs now?
I don't know.
Depends on what, and then Jonathan and I
It's an
have talked
ongoing
about,
discussion.
Right.
going around to each building this summer as buildings and grounds and taking a good look at each building
That's a
and
good
getting
idea.
more information on the conditions and.
How much we're going to spend on each building to keep them going, above and beyond the loan we're paying.
Yeah.
Right. The things that still need fixed.
Should be the same as last time.
Well, I'd like to see for myself.
Things pop up every month.
Yep.
Okay, I'll update these figures for you and get them back.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Good. Okay.
All right.
Well, that's it.
We done?
Okay.
Anybody
Yep.
else have anything?
Thank
Great.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you. It was very
Thank
very
you.
informative. Productive.